Chapter 1. What if the universe is silent, and our rebellion is a whisper? It finally hears. There's a question that visits a man in the still hours. It doesn't come with a shout. It's quieter than that. It arrives on the breath you let out after a long day, in the space between one heartbeat and the next, when the world has finally gone quiet, and you are left alone with the architecture of your own mind. It's this. Does any of it truly matter? The reports you filed, the driveway you shoveled, the carefully planned future, the worries that feel so monumental under fluorescent lights. Do they echo anywhere in the grand, cold vault of the universe, or are they just sounds we make to distract ourselves from a fundamental silence? This H, this feeling of building something on sand while the tide is always inevitably coming in. The French philosopher Albert Camus didn't call it depression or a midlife crisis. He gave it a more precise, more beautiful name. He called it the absurd. The absurd is the divorce. It's the confrontation between our desperate, feverish human need for meaning, for answers, for why, and the utter, indifferent, breathtaking silence of the universe in response. We are creatures who need bread and meaning with equal urgency, and the cosmos offers us neither. It just is. Think of it. You cry out into a canyon, expecting an echo, a confirmation of your own existence. And you are met with a silence so complete, so profound, it feels like a verdict. That is the absurd. It's not the universe that is absurd, it is us, placed within it, asking questions of a sphinx that has no riddle, no answer, and no interest in our plight. And in the face of this, Camus said, man has traditionally been offered three choices, three doors to step through, to escape the uncomfortable chill of this truth. The first door is physical suicide. If life has no inherent meaning, then the logical conclusion is to end it. But Camus, with the clarity of a man staring into a desert sun, rejected this utterly. It is not a solution. It is a surrender to the silence. It is, in its own way, agreeing with the universe's verdict. It is the ultimate confession that the question was too heavy to bear. The second door is philosophical suicide. This is the leap of faith. It is to bypass reason, to shut down the questioning mind, and to take shelter in the ready-made meaning of a god, a dogma, a political ideology, a system that explains everything. It is to say, I do not know, therefore I will believe. Camus respected the comfort of this door, but he ultimately saw it too as a form of surrender. It is the willful shutting of one's own eyes to the truth of the silence. It is a betrayal of the very human faculty that discovered the absurd in the first place, our reason, our unyielding need to ask. So what is left? If we cannot end our lives, and we will not end our questions by handing them to someone else, what remains for us in this cold, beautiful, indifferent world? This is where Camus's voice becomes not a diagnosis, but a quiet, firm companion in the dark. He offers a third door, but it is not a door out, it is a door in. It is the door of rebellion. And rebellion here is not shaking your fist at the sky. That would imply the sky is listening. It is not. Rebellion is a quieter, more profound, more deeply personal act. It is the conscious decision to live, to breathe, to feel, to experience, in spite of the silence. It is saying, you, universe, offer me no reason, so I will create my own. Not a grand cosmic reason, but a terrestrial one, a human one. Your rebellion is the coffee you savor in the morning, not because it is part of a divine plan, but because you choose to find richness in its aroma. Your rebellion is the integrity with which you do your work, not for a promotion, but because doing a thing well is its own reward. Your rebellion is the love you offer another person, fully aware that love is fragile and temporary, and offering it anyway, because that very act defies the cold mathematics of the cosmos. Your life becomes a work of art, not a puzzle to be solved. The universe is silent. Yes, but in your rebellion, your conscious, chosen, passionate engagement with every sensory detail of this fleeting life, you create a whisper so full of meaning, so full of humanity, that the universe, for a moment, seems to lean in, just to hear it. Your life becomes the echo you were waiting for. And in that, the silence is not broken, but it is forever changed. That first truth is a stark one. It asks us to stare into the void. But what happens when our eyes adjust to the darkness? What shape does a life of quiet rebellion actually take? It feels abstract, until you meet a man who has become its eternal portrait. A man pushing a rock. Chapter 2. Is Sisyphus secretly the most contented man who ever lived? The gods condemned Sisyphus to ceaselessly roll a rock to the top of a mountain, whence the stone would fall back of its own weight. They had thought, with some reason, that there is no more dreadful punishment than futile and hopeless labor. We know this man. We have been this man. The project that is never quite finished. The lawn that always needs mowing. The same commute, the same routine, the same struggles, day after day after day. We look at our own rock, our own mountain, and we see the definition of futility, of meaningless toil. We see a curse. Camus asks us to look again, look closer. At the moment Sisyphus walks back down the mountain, the rock has rolled down, his hands are empty. The task is, for a moment, complete in its incompleteness. In that descent, his time is his own. He is free. He feels the cool mountain air on his face. He sees the texture of the stone path beneath his feet. He hears the call of a bird in the pine trees. He is conscious. He is aware. This is the pivotal moment. The god's punishment relies on one thing, that Sisyphus despises his task, that he is defeated by it. But what if he isn't? What if, in that walk down the mountain, Sisyphus becomes aware of his own existence? What if he acknowledges the absurdity of his fate, the utter lack of ultimate purpose in pushing a rock for all eternity, and he accepts it? Not with resignation, but with acceptance, with ownership. Camus imagines him happy. Happy, not because of the task, but in spite of it. His happiness is not a destination. It is a manner of traveling. It is the conscious choice to find the texture, the detail, the sensory experience within the struggle itself, the strain of the muscle, the sweat on the brow, the particular way the light hits the granite at sunset. He must own the rock. He must make the rock his. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. Think of your own rock, your own mountain, that thing you do that feels repetitive, futile, meaningless. Could you perhaps change the question? The question is not, how do I get this rock to stay at the top of the mountain forever? That is a question for the gods, and it is designed to torture you. The rebellious question is, how do I make this my rock? How do I find the fleeting moments of beauty, of mastery, of simple sensory pleasure within the push? The man who rebelliously accepts his fate, who owns his rock, is no longer a slave to it. He is its master. He has stolen the punishment's power by refusing to be tortured by it. He has found meaning not in the outcome, but in the engagement with the act itself. This is not optimism. It is something far more durable, far more profound. It is lucidity. It is seeing the rock for what it is, seeing the mountain for what it is, and saying, "This is my domain, and I will find my joy here, on my terms." Sisyphus is the ultimate absurd hero, because he finds victory in the heart of his defeat. He is contented, not despite his eternal labor, but because he has transformed that labor into an act of defiant creation. He is the author of his own experience within the confines of his myth. And as we watch him walk down the mountain, a faint smile playing on his lips, we are left to wonder, who is really being punished? The man pushing the rock, or the gods who cannot understand the freedom he has found in his chains? And so we learn to own our rock, to find a quiet contentment in the push and the descent. But this life is not lived in a vacuum. We are surrounded by other people, by society, by events that seem to conspire against our fragile peace. If the universe is indifferent, and our task is to create our own meaning, how do we navigate a world that so often feels broken? Where do we place our feet when the ground itself seems to give way? Chapter 3. When the world loses its script, do we finally get to write our own lines? We are born into a world of scripts. We are handed them, often without our consent. The script of what it means to be a success. The script of what it means to be a man. The script of nationalism, of ideology, of what to want, what to fear, who to admire, who to scorn. For a long time, these scripts provide a comfortable structure. They tell us where to stand, what to say, how to feel. They give us the illusion that the play makes sense. But then, life happens. A loss so profound it cracks the foundation. An injustice that makes no sense. A view from a window that shows you a world far more complex and beautiful and terrible than your script ever allowed for. The pages curl and blacken. The words fade. You look down and realize you no longer know your lines. And for a moment, it is the most terrifying feeling in the world. This is the feeling of the absurd, applied to society itself. Camus saw this happening on a colossal scale in the wars and totalitarian regimes of his time. He saw people committing horrific acts because they were just following orders, clinging to a political or ideological script that absolved them of personal responsibility. He saw the danger of handing your moral compass over to any external system, any ism that claims to have all the answers. But in this terrifying void, where the old scripts have turned to ash in our hands, Camus saw not just danger, but an unprecedented opportunity, a terrible, sobering, and ultimately liberating freedom. If the old play is over, then we are no longer actors reciting lines. We are playwrights. We are, for the first time, free to write our own. This is the final and most demanding stage of the absurd rebellion. It moves from the personal contentment of Sisyphus to the ethical engagement with the world. It asks, if there is no divine law, then what is the basis for our actions? How do we treat others? Camus's answer is deceptively simple, and it comes from the very heart of the absurd itself. We must act with solidarity. Why? Because we are all in the same boat. We are all Sisyphus. Every single human being is pushing their rock up their own mountain, under the same silent sky. We are united in our struggle, in our longing, in our fate. This shared condition is the only divine law we can ever truly know. Therefore, the only thing that is truly, unequivocally wrong in an absurd world is anything that adds to the weight of another person's rock, anything that crushes their spirit, denies their freedom, or negates their right to create their own meaning. Injustice, tyranny, cruelty, these are the ultimate sins against the absurd, because they violate the only truth we have, our shared, fragile, and precious human journey. Your rebellion, then, is not a solitary one. It is a commitment to walk through the world with a profound sense of empathy, to measure every action, every policy, every word by a single question. Does this lessen the burden on another? Does this acknowledge their struggle, their right to their own rock, their own mountain? You write your lines not in isolation, but in conversation with the other playwrights around you. Your script is one of measured decency, of quiet integrity, of helping a stranger, not because a god commands it, but because you recognize in them your own struggle, your own silent rebellion. So when the world loses its script, do not panic. Do not rush to find a new one to follow. Take a breath. Feel the weight of the blank page. It is heavy. It is frightening, but it is yours. And with a hand that might tremble, but with a heart that is clear, you begin to write. You write a story not of cosmic purpose, but of human scale, a story of small kindnesses, of chosen beauty, of fierce protectiveness over the freedom of others to tell their own tales. And in that act of creation, you leave a mark upon the world, far more lasting than any echo in a silent canyon ever could be. You leave a testament that says, I was here, I felt, I chose, I rebelled, I lived. The fire has burned low now. The night has grown deep and soft around these ideas. There is no final answer to be given, no neat conclusion to tie with a bow. That would be against the very spirit of our subject. There is only the ongoing, quiet, personal conversation between you and the silence. Carry these whispers with you into your dreams. Let them settle. Let them breathe. The rock, the mountain, the empty page. They are not threats. They are invitations to live, to really live, on your own terms, with eyes wide open. Sleep now, and may your rebellion be a peaceful one. Close your eyes now and let the day begin to soften at its edges. Let the lists and the deadlines, the notifications and the obligations, let them all dissolve into the gathering dark. They were never the most real part of you anyway. That part is quieter. That part is waiting in the stillness, waiting for a different kind of conversation. One not about what you do, but about why you are. Tonight we wander into the sun-bleached, beautiful absurdity of Albert Camus. Not for a lecture, not for a test, but for a kind of peace. A strange, hard-won peace that feels not like a victory parade, but like a quiet sigh of recognition in an empty room. A philosophy to fall asleep to, because it ends not with a shout, but with a settled breath. Chapter 4. What if the weight of the stone is the very thing that sets you free? Imagine the heat of the sun on your back. Not a gentle warmth, but a hammer's blow of light from a sky bleached of all mercy. There is dust in your throat, the grit of it between your teeth, and in your hands, cooled by some strange alchemy against the oppressive air, is a stone. You know its weight. You know its exact, stubborn density in your muscles, in the curve of your spine. You heave it. You push your entire being against its inertia, until it moves, until it rolls, up the slope. Your world narrows to this, the strain in your legs, the sweat in your eyes, the slow, grinding progress, and then the peak. For a single suspended moment, the stone is weightless at the apex. And then, as it always does, it tumbles back down. And you follow, to begin again. This is the curse of Sisyphus, the ancient king condemned by the gods to an eternity of futile labor. It is the perfect metaphor for a universe that seems to offer us nothing but tasks that are undone, goals that move, dreams that, once achieved, often taste of ash. We get the promotion, and the new horizon simply reveals another mountain. We build something beautiful, and time weathers it. We love, and we lose. We push our stone every day, and the gods, it seems, are watching from a distant, silent Olympus, amused by our endless, pointless struggle. This is the absurd, Camus's great revelation, that chilling, beautiful collision between our human heart that desperately cries out for meaning, for reason, for order, and the universe's majestic, utter indifference to that cry. We are creatures who need a why, living in a world that offers only a how. The silence of the cosmos isn't hostile. It's worse. It's unconcerned. It doesn't hate your stone. It doesn't even see it. And so we are left on that mountainside. And here, Camus says, is the most important moment of our lives, the moment of realization. We look at the stone, we look at the empty sky, and we understand the joke. There is no final victory, no summit where an angel waits with a certificate of completion. The struggle itself is the entirety of the deal. And this is where most philosophies would try to build an escape ladder. They'd offer you religion or nihilism or some grand system to explain it all away. But Camus, our clear-eyed friend in the desert, says, no, do not leap into the comfort of false gods. Do not leap into the void of despair. Instead, do something far more radical. Stay, revolt. Not by overthrowing the gods, they are irrelevant, but by embracing the truth of your condition. The rock is yours. The hill is yours. The sweat is yours. You must imagine Sisyphus happy, not because he's deluded, not because he's found a secret trick, but because in that moment, walking back down the hill to his stone, he has accepted the terms. He has looked into the void and said, I see you, and I will continue. His freedom is not freedom from the labor, but freedom within it, the freedom to own his task completely, to find a rhythm in the push, to feel the sun on his skin as his sun, to know the weight of the stone as his weight. His rebellion is his clarity. He is, in that moment, the master of his own meaningless universe, and there is a profound, unshakable dignity in that, a sovereignty of the self. So tonight, as you feel the weight of your own stones, the worries you push uphill every day only to see them roll back down tomorrow, consider this. What if you stopped asking for the struggle to end? What if you stopped waiting for a meaning to be handed down from the silent sky, and instead, you simply took ownership of the push itself? The weight is real, the strain is real, but so is your strength in bearing it. The weight is not your prison. It is the very thing that defines your strength. It is the price of admission to a life lived without illusions. And in that acceptance, in that lucid, rebellious embrace of your own uphill path, there is a strange and powerful form of freedom, a freedom that sleeps soundly, even on a mountainside, under a starry, silent sky. And from that solitary mountainside, from the man who has made peace with his rock, we turn our gaze outward to the sea. Chapter 5. Does a life without a map force you to discover a truer north? Picture a coastline, not the tame, charted kind with buoys and harbors, but a wild, ancient shore, the Mediterranean coast of Algeria, where Camus grew up. The sun here is a different creature. It doesn't warm. It reveals. It strips everything down to its essential form. The water is not an inviting blue, but a deep, almost black violet, holding its secrets close. The scent is of salt, of sun-baked pine, of dry earth. This is the world before explanation, a world of sensation, of the body. We spend so much of our lives living in the world of maps. The maps of career trajectories, the maps of social expectations, the maps of what a good life is supposed to look like. We follow these routes laid down by others, and we call it ambition. We call it success. We are navigating by a compass that we did not magnetize. And for a time it works. The path is clear. But then, something breaks through. Camus called it the dizziness of the absurd. It's a feeling, a crack in the facade. It's the sudden, shocking irrelevance of a spreadsheet in a universe that is billions of years old. It's the taste of your morning coffee becoming for one blinding second just a taste, a sensation utterly divorced from the ritual of starting your day. It is the world shedding its layers of meaning and presenting itself, naked, strange, and beautiful. This dizziness is not a malfunction. It is an invitation. The maps have been washed away by a sudden tide. You are left on that wild coastline with no predetermined path. This is terrifying, to be unmoored from purpose. But it is also the moment of your greatest opportunity, because when the pre-written scripts are gone, you are finally free to feel your own way, to discover what truly matters to you, not to your resume, not to your family, not to your culture. Your truer north is not a destination on anyone's map. It is the sum of all that makes you feel most alive in this sensuous world. For Camus, this wasn't an abstract idea. It was the feel of cool water on skin after a day in the sun. It was the solidarity of a shared look with another human being who also understands the struggle. It was the sheer, unjustifiable beauty of the world in the face of its injustice. He wasn't preaching hedonism. He was preaching attention, a passionate, loving attention to the immediate experience of being alive, to love what is, to be utterly, completely present for the fleeting, beautiful fact of a peach's flavor, or the way the light hits a wall in the late afternoon. These are not distractions from the absurd. They are the answers to it. They are our rebellion. To choose to find wonder in a world that offers no reason for wonder is the most defiant act of all. Your life, stripped of its inherited meaning, is not empty, it is full, overflowing with sensory truth, waiting to be noticed. The maps were always a crutch. They prevented you from truly touching the world, from feeling its grain under your fingertips. They told you where to go, but they never let you simply be where you are. To be lost is to be present. To not know the way is to be forced to truly see the ground you are standing on. So, what is your coastline? What are the sensations, the loves, the simple beauties that you would choose, not because you were told to, but because your body, your heart, your very being resonates with them? That resonance is your only compass, and its needle points toward a life that is authentically, unbearably, and perfectly your own. And from the vastness of that open sea, we are drawn inward to the most intimate stage of all. Chapter 6. In the Quiet. After the applause, who is left standing on the stage? Think of the last time you were truly alone, not just physically alone in a room, but deeply, profoundly alone with yourself. After the party, when the guests have gone, and you're left with the ringing silence and the empty glasses. After the achievement has been celebrated, and the congratulations have faded into your inbox. After the performance of the day is over, the performance of competence, of cheer, of confidence, and you take off the costume. Who is there then? When there is no one left to perform for, who are you? We are all actors on a stage. Camus saw this clearly. We play the role of the parent, the professional, the friend, the leader. We speak lines written by expectation. We move within sets built by convention. There is a necessity to this. It is the grease of society. But the danger, the deep, sleepwalking danger, is that we begin to believe the performance is all we are, that the character is the actor. We lose ourselves in the part, and the authentic self, the backstage self, grows quiet, neglected, and unfamiliar. The absurd moment is the moment the stage lights flicker. It's when a line sounds hollow in your own mouth. It's when the set feels flimsy. It's the quiet internal question that whispers, "Is this really me?" This is not a call to abandon your roles. You are a father, a mother, a worker, a citizen. These are real relationships with real responsibilities. But it is a call to never forget that you are also the one who plays the father, the mother, the worker. There is a you behind the roles, an identity that is not defined by what you do for others, but by who you are when all doing ceases. This is the core of Camus's idea of authenticity, to live with what he called lucidity, to be aware of the performance, even as you perform, to choose your roles consciously because they are useful, or because you love the other actors in them, but never to be enslaved by them, to know that the applause is for the character, not for you, and the silence after the applause, that is for you. That silence is your homeland. It is where you meet yourself, stripped of all decoration. It might be unsettling at first. This self is not a list of accomplishments. It is not a job title. It is a collection of private loves, unspoken fears, raw sensations, and a fundamental will to exist. It is the part of you that looks at the stars and feels small, and yet feels a strange, defiant joy in that smallness. Nurturing this relationship with your backstage self is the most important work of your life, for it is this self that will be with you on your final day. It is this self that truly pushes the stone, that truly feels the sun on the coast. The roles will all be retired. The stage will go dark, but the actor remains. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, ask yourself not what you did today, but who you were when no one was looking. Who is the I that observes the performance? Meet that I. Get to know it. For in the end, a life lived with authenticity is not one that achieved the most, but one that belonged most completely to the person living it. It is a life where, when the final curtain falls, the actor takes a bow, not as a character, but as a full, true, and lucid self. And there is no greater peace than that, no deeper sleep than one earned by a day of being genuinely, unperformatively you. And so, we let these thoughts settle, the rock, the coast, the stage. They are not lessons to be memorized, but landscapes to be felt. Camus does not offer answers. He offers a posture, a way of standing in the world, eyes open, heart undefeated, at peace with the beautiful, meaningless struggle. So let your breath be your rock, let the darkness be your coast, and let your dreaming mind be the private stage where you are, finally and forever, yourself. Sleep well. Close your eyes for a moment. Just listen to the hum of the silence in your room, to the faint rhythm of your own breath. And I want you to consider something, just for a moment, before we begin. That every philosophy, every system of belief, every desperate grasp for purpose. It all begins with a single, quiet terror. The fear that the night sky is not watching back, that our triumphs and our heartbreaks play out on a stage with no audience. This is not a thought to frighten you, not tonight. Think of it instead as a key, cold and heavy in your hand, waiting to unlock a door to a strange and profound kind of peace. The kind of peace that Albert Camus found not in answers, but in the beautiful, heartbreaking questions themselves. Chapter 7. What if the only honest response to an indifferent universe is a love affair with the world? There is a moment, isn't there? A moment that comes to every man, usually not in a crisis, but in a pause. You're driving home and the sunset is a violent splash of orange and purple against the windshield. And for a second, it's so breathtaking it almost hurts. And in that second, a thought, unbidden, floats to the surface. What is this for? Who is this show for? If the universe is just blind mechanics, a chaotic dance of particles without a plan, then why this unbearable beauty? This is the collision. This is the sound of the absurd. It's the sound of your human heart, which craves meaning, logic, and reason, slamming into the silent granite wall of a world that offers none. Camus called this the feeling of the absurd. It's not the universe itself. The universe just is. It is a rock, a tree, a star. It does not refuse meaning. It is utterly oblivious to the very concept. The absurd is the tension, the dissonance that exists in you, the perceiver. It's the ache in the gap between our desperate need for a why and the world's steadfast, silent is. Most of our lives are spent building bridges over that gap. We build them with religion, with ambition, with money, with family, with the frantic scrolling of news feeds, anything to distract us from the chasm below. We tell ourselves the story that our work matters in the grand scheme, that our love echoes in the cosmos, that there is a scorekeeper and a final tally. But deep down, in those quiet hours just before sleep, we feel the draft from that gap. We sense the void. And the traditional answer, the one offered by so many, is to take a leap of faith, to jump across the gap into the arms of belief, to choose to believe in a meaning we cannot see, to bet on a divine plan. Camus, the philosopher of sun-drenched Mediterranean clarity, would call that philosophical suicide. It is killing the very part of you that recognized the absurd in the first place, your reason. It's a betrayal of the evidence of your senses. To face the absurd is to have the courage to say, I do not know, and I will not pretend to know. It is to stand at the edge of that cliff and refuse to jump. But here is the secret, the thing rarely spoken about in such stark terms. When you refuse to jump, when you turn your back on the leap of faith, you are not left with nothing. You are forced to turn around. And what is behind you? The entire, senseless, magnificent, heartbreaking world. This is where the love affair begins. When you realize the sunset has no purpose, its beauty is not diminished. It is liberated. It is no longer a signifier for something else, a message from a divine artist. It is just a sunset. And in its pure, pointless existence, it becomes more precious, not less. Your morning coffee is not a prelude to a productive day ordained by God. It is a ritual of steam, bitterness, and warmth. The laugh of a friend is not a cosmic coincidence. It is a temporary, fragile miracle against the silence. This is the great inversion. The world, stripped of imposed meaning, overflows with a staggering, undeniable presence. Your love for it becomes more intense because you know it is fleeting. You are not loving it for a reason. You are loving it for its own sake. You are a stranger who has fallen in love with a land he knows he must leave. And so he notices the texture of the cobblestones, the smell of the bakeries at dawn, the way the light catches the dust in a room. He loves it absolutely because he knows it is temporary. This is the honest response, to look into the void, acknowledge its existence, and then, with full awareness, choose to turn and embrace the world. Not because it means something, but because it is. And in that embrace, in that love affair with the tangible, the sensory, the now, you find not an answer to the absurd, but a way of living within it. A way of living truly and fully without appeal. And so, if we can love a world that does not love us back, where does that leave the one who loves? The man who has accepted his role not as a central character in a story, but as a temporary guest in a vast, beautiful hotel. It leaves him in a state of exile. And it is to that exile we now turn. Chapter 8. Can a man condemned to be free find a home in his own exile? There is a weight to freedom that we rarely speak of. We champion it, we fight for it, we build nations upon its ideal. But existential freedom, the kind Camus speaks of, is a terrifying burden. It is the realization that the walls of your life are not built by fate, or God, or destiny. You look at your hands and you see the mortar, you see the stones. You built them. Every choice, every path taken or not taken, every silent acquiescence, every bold defiance, it was all you. You are the architect of your own prison, or perhaps of your own kingdom. This is the condemnation. You are free, utterly free to make of your life what you will. There is no script. The stage is empty, and the spotlight is on you, waiting. This is a lonely truth. It can feel less like liberation and more like being cast adrift in an endless ocean. You are exiled from the comfort of certainty, from the warmth of a preordained purpose. You are a stranger to yourself because you are constantly creating who you are. This is the story of Meursault, the stranger. He is a man who does not play the game. He refuses to cry at his mother's funeral, not out of malice, but because he doesn't feel like crying. He is exiled from the unwritten rules of society, the performative emotions everyone else uses to comfort themselves, to create the illusion of meaning. He is condemned for this. But his crime is not a lack of feeling. It is a radical, unsettling honesty. He is a man living without appeal to a higher judge, and it makes everyone else profoundly uncomfortable. We are all, in our own ways, a little like Meursault. We feel the pressure to perform a version of ourselves that fits, that makes sense to others. The devoted son, the passionate employee, the man who has it all figured out. But in our quietest moments, we feel the exile. We feel the gap between the performance and the raw, unedited experience of being alive. Camus is not asking us to become cold, emotionless strangers. He is inviting us to recognize the exile for what it is, the birthplace of authentic freedom. To be condemned to be free is to be given the ultimate responsibility. You are not a leaf blown by the wind of destiny. You are the wind, and you are the leaf, and you are the tree from which it fell. So how does one find a home in this state of perpetual exile? You build it not from answers, but from questions. Not from a fixed identity, but from a constant, conscious choosing. Your home becomes the very act of choosing itself. The integrity of saying, this is what I feel. This is what I value. This is the man I will be today, even if it makes you a stranger in a familiar land. Your home is the unwavering awareness of your own freedom. It is the rock you cling to in the absurd ocean. You may be exiled from cosmic purpose, but you can be utterly at home in your own conscious chosen life. You find a home in the authenticity of your own experience, in the taste of the sea salt on your lips, in the weight of the sun on your skin, in the choices you make without regret because you know they are yours and yours alone. The exile is not a punishment. It is the clearing of the deck. It is the silent, empty room where you finally get to decide how to furnish it. And what do we do in this room we have built for ourselves, this home of our own choosing? We do not merely reside there, we must create. For if the universe has no playwright, the most honest thing we can do is pick up a pen. Chapter 9. In a Cosmos. Without a playwright, is the greatest act of rebellion to become an artist? Think of Sisyphus, the ancient king condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up a mountain for all eternity, only to watch it roll back down each time he nears the top. This is the classic image of futile labor, the pointless task, the punishment designed to strip a man of all hope, all dignity, all meaning. For centuries, he was the symbol of hopelessness. But Camus saw something else in that myth. He asked us to imagine Sisyphus on his walk back down the mountain. The task is done. The boulder is at the bottom. He has a moment of respite. The gods have won. They have imposed their pointless punishment. But in that walk down the mountain, Sisyphus is free. Free to think. Free to feel. Free to look at the world around him. Camus insists we must imagine Sisyphus happy. Why? Because Sisyphus, in his full awareness of the absurdity of his task, transcends it. His rebellion is his consciousness. He knows the rock will roll down. He knows he will push it back up. And by knowing this, he defeats the gods. His punishment relies on his despair. But if he refuses to despair, if he finds a scrap of meaning not in the outcome, which is guaranteed to be futile, but in the doing itself, then he is no longer a prisoner. He is an artist. The rock is his medium. The uphill climb is his masterpiece. He creates meaning through the sheer force of his will and his awareness. He is not rolling a rock. He is sculpting his own dignity, moment by moment, push by push. This is the invitation, to become the artist of your own life. The cosmos is not a finished painting. It is an empty canvas. And your rebellion against the silence, against the indifference, is to put paint on it. Your rebellion is to love, even though love ends. It is to create a business, a family, a garden, a moment of connection, even though the sun will one day swallow the earth. It is to be kind, not because a God commands it, but because you choose to create a world where kindness exists. You are injecting meaning into a void that contains none. You are not discovering purpose. You are creating it. And this act of creation is the ultimate defiance. The man who lives this way does not ask, "What is the meaning of life?" He asks, "What meaning shall I bring to life today?" He is the playwright, the actor, and the audience of his own existence. His life becomes his magnum opus, not because it will be remembered for centuries, but because it is authentic, because it is chosen, because it is his. He rolls his rock, and in the strain of his muscles, he finds a sense of self. In the rhythm of his breath, he finds a song, and in the acceptance of his task, he finds a victory that no God can take from him. The greatest act of rebellion is to live with passion and create with purpose, not in spite of the absurd, but because of it. To be an artist of the everyday. To make of your life a thing of beauty, precisely because it is temporary. To leave behind not a monument, but the whisper of a life well lived, a rock well pushed, a canvas splashed with the brilliant, defiant colors of a human being who looked into the silence and answered with a work of art. So, as you drift toward sleep, let go of the need for the universe to whisper back. It is enough that you can whisper. It is enough that you can feel the cool sheet against your skin, that you can remember the sound of a loved one's voice, that you can plan a project for a tomorrow that is not promised. This is not a tragedy. This is the raw material. This is the clay. And tomorrow when you wake, you get to shape it. You get to push your rock, not with despair, but with the quiet, focused attention of a sculptor. You get to write your lines in a play that has no author, and in doing so, you become one. The curtain is always up, the stage is yours, and the act of stepping onto it again and again is the only meaning that has ever truly mattered. Chapter 10. What if the rock you've been pushing is actually the anchor that holds you? Think of that for a moment, in the quiet of your own mind, after the day has finally released its grip on you. That weight you carry, that daily grind that leaves your shoulders tight and your mind weary. What if it isn't a curse? What if, in some strange, inverted way, it is the very thing that keeps you from drifting away into a sea of nothingness? This is not a thought for the daylight. It is a secret for the night, a quiet heresy against the relentless pursuit of easy answers. It is the first whisper from the philosophy of a man who stared into the abyss, not with fear, but with a curious, almost defiant warmth. Albert Camus, and his question is not how to escape the weight, but how to love it, and in loving it, become free. Imagine him, not a statue in a book, but a man in a worn trench coat, collar turned up against a Parisian drizzle, a cigarette glowing in the twilight like a lone, persistent firefly. He walks, not with the purpose of a man going somewhere, but with the rhythm of a man thinking. And his thoughts were of Sisyphus, that ancient king condemned by the gods to the most futile task imaginable, to push a massive boulder up a mountain, using every ounce of his strength, his muscles straining, his breath coming in ragged gasps, only to watch it, at the very zenith of his effort, roll back down to the bottom. Again and again, for all eternity. We hear the myth and we shudder. We think, what a nightmare, what an exquisite, cruel punishment. A perfect metaphor for our own lives, our own endless repetitive tasks that seem to add up to nothing. The reports written and filed away, the lawns mowed only to grow again, the dishes washed, only to be dirtied after the next meal. We are all Sisyphus, we think, and the rock is our burden. But Camus stopped at the top of that mountain. He didn't look away in horror. He watched Sisyphus as he turned to walk back down the slope, and he saw something there, in that moment, that the gods, in their arrogance, had missed. He saw a man who was conscious, who knew the full extent of his fate, who understood the utter futility of his task. And in that knowledge, in that full, unflinching awareness, Camus saw not despair, but the seeds of revolution. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart, he wrote. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Happy. The word hangs in the air, doesn't it? It feels wrong, like a discordant note in a familiar song. How can he be happy? But that's the locked door. That's the whisper under the crack. What if happiness isn't the absence of the struggle, but a quality you bring to the struggle, The gods thought they were punishing him with the rock, but what if the rock became his purpose, his point of contact with the world, his rebellion? The gods expected despair. They expected him to break under the weight of a meaningless task. But by accepting the task, by embracing the absurdity of it, the glorious, ridiculous contradiction of pushing a rock you know will fall, Sisyphus steals the victory. He makes his fate a human thing, something that belongs to him and him alone. He is, in that moment, superior to his rock. He is the master, not the slave. His push is not one of defeat, but of defiance, a silent, steadfast, and yet whispered into the uncaring universe. Your rock, that project that seems to go nowhere, that responsibility that feels like a chain, that daily routine that can feel so empty. What if you looked at it not as a sentence, but as your domain? Your plot of land in the vast, indifferent cosmos. You are the one who tends to it. You are the one who decides the quality of your effort, the integrity of your push. The universe may not care if your report is elegant, if your lawn is neat, if your dishes are clean. But you can care. And in that caring, in that conscious, deliberate act of doing something well, not for a cosmic reward, but for the simple, profound satisfaction of the act itself, you reclaim your freedom. You anchor yourself in a world that offers no anchors. The weight isn't the enemy. The enemy is the belief that the weight should not be there. Embrace the weight. Feel the strain in your muscles and know that you are alive. Hear your own breath and know that you are here. And in the quiet moments walking back down the hill, you can look out at the stars and smile a secret smile. The rock is waiting, and it is yours. So we find, in the embrace of our weight, a strange and solid ground. But this ground exists under a vast and empty sky, a sky that has long since lost its maps,